Hello, Karen Bierce Designs here with a card for the Top Flight birthday blog hop. It is Top Flight's 3rd birthday, and I made this fun card. I had a lot of different ideas. If you check out my blog post, I can show you some other ideas that I had along the way. So there's a few times in the video where it might be a little bit confusing, but I have subtitles to let you know what's going on. But bottom line is, I show you how to create this and all the different techniques and embossing that I did. I used a lot of darkroom door stamps on this. So let's get started. Happy birthday, Top Flight. And what I have is I have some paper artsy paints in cherry red, ochre, and cerise en français, cherries in French, I guess. And I've put some on my craft mat. I hope you can see that. I'm filming through here, so I can't tell. Then I have my the Eileen Hull Molten Dimensions, again, waiting on the sidelines because I have to work fairly quickly because this paint dries fairly quickly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to dab on the colors, stamp it, and then emboss it, and hopefully I will get a good image. So I do have to move a little quickly. I've tried doing this with a brayer, and I'm thinking this might be the better way to get more of the paint on where it, because the idea is I want it to stay a bit wet. So again, we'll see. But I do want it to be kind of messy because that's the whole theme of the quote, really, is for it to be messy. This could be a catastrophe. We don't know. Just going to stamp it. Get a good impression. That's pretty good, but I can already see the paint. I love that, but the paint's already drying. So we'll see how much of it I get. I don't want to tap it off too much. And then I'm going to dump my, make sure you dump your stamp in water. Okay, so the heat gun was really loud, so I thought I would do a voiceover for this part. What I'm doing is I'm starting with the heat gun underneath the paper, and as the crystals heat, they start to melt, which is what I want. And eventually you'll see me bring the heat gun over to the top where I can, once stuff starts melting, then I can move the heat gun to the top of the paper. I don't have to worry about my embossing powder blowing over. That's what you see right now. And then what I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm just refining the areas. And anywhere where there's crystals or basically it looks like sand, clear sand, I want to heat that up. And here you can see where my image is becoming just really cool, and it looks like an epoxy. It's just covered with epoxy. And that is basically what I'm looking for. The coverage is pretty good in places, like creative is really well done. Down here, I have almost nothing now. So there's a couple things I can do. I can come in with a paint pen, and I think I'll do that actually, just not a paint pen, but a paintbrush, and I'll just fix that up a bit. I can also, I could coat the whole thing in a layer of the color, but I just don't know yet if I want to do a different color behind. So the idea being that this is creating a resist. So if I decide that I don't want the white, I can put another color behind there, and it just gives me more options, and I just wanted to see if this would work. So I love how bright it is. I love that the colors are bright. I love that it looks messy. That was part of the idea because of the theme of the quote and everything. I'm just not happy that I didn't get, like the whole blotchy thing. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to take a fairly thin or fine paintbrush. We'll see if I can just come in here. I still want to keep the sketchiness, so I don't want it to be too obviously perfect. That's all right. And then same with the paint splatter. Maybe take a couple of colors and just refine it a little bit. I should probably have a copy of the stamp beside me, but I think that's good enough. And then I'll add embossing powder and I'll be back. Okay, that didn't work great, and part of it was the paint was drying by the time, you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dab of, this is the embossing brush. I'm going to put a dab of it on my cardstock here. It's really sticky, so I decided I didn't want to put it on my craft sheet. And I'm going to go over my painted areas, sort of the same way in kind of a sketchy fashion. And the neat thing about this is I can come in pretty much anywhere I missed. I have more dry time as a result because it is sort of a, you know, it's like a gel almost. So it does give me a little more dry time. Yeah, I like that. So I'm coming in and I'm just fixing where the emboss did not go as well. Haha, you see, we can fix these things. All right, we'll see how that does. I'm gonna put that in water. Okay. And I don't want to be too fussy. I mean, you know, it's mixed media. But I don't want to be too fussy, but right, so that was a good fix, I have to say. One of the bonuses, like I missed this dot, so I'm going to go back in here. But that's one of the bonuses, because I use paint, I'm not going to, kind of wrecking my paintbrush. I would keep a dedicated brush for this because I don't know that that's going to come off. But because I'm using paint, it's not, I don't have to worry about it drying. I mean, I don't have to worry about it blending as I do this. If I had used ink, I might be worried about it, you know, smudging or moving around. But because I use paint, the paint's not, once it's dry, it's permanent. So it's not going to go anywhere. If I get too much on there, like I have a little blob, I can always flick that off. Again, let's not be too fussy. Here I'm just doing a very quick heat gun again underneath, and then coming up over the paper to get that lovely drop fixed. Okay, I pretty much like that. Now what? Okay, so I did want to show you what I do with my leftover paint. That's on my craft mat. I hate to waste this paint, and this is basically a background I've done. And this, as you can tell, had other paints on it previously from doing the same thing. But I'll just go in, and I don't spend time thinking about it. I don't fuss about. The idea is just to get the paint used up and move on to the next thing. This book is in a Dina Wakley journal. But what I can do, and it's just all from demoing and different classes and things, demoing, and it's kind of my backup journal. But you can see, you know, like this was just playing with different pastes. And then here's a page that I'd started today as well. It had some other stuff on it. So it's just a way to not waste paint. I don't want to waste my paint. And then the bonus is you already have a background started. So all I'll do, and sometimes I do it differently. This was obviously, I had a stencil and I'd come in and just cleaned off my stencil on my page. So it creates interesting opportunity. And again, not wasting the paint. And then literally that's all I do. And then once my paint's pretty much used up, I'll just, and like that's bonus. Look at that extra bonus goober texture. You know, you gotta love the goober texture. So it's a very fancy technique I'm showing you. That's it. And then I'll set that aside to dry. And depending on what I'm doing, I can have multiple books going, so that as I'm cleaning, I can, you know, leave them open to dry, grab another book if I have extra. Okay, so I've got my card. I redid it because I had cut up my paper to do other things with. Basically, this is what I had, but I really didn't like it the way I did it, so I'm redoing it. And I started with the paint. I did it the same way. It turned out really well. What I've realized is this does take practice, this technique, because I did this in one. I didn't have to come in with anything. I didn't have to fuss about. So I would recommend you practice a couple of times, and then you'll get to the point where I really like this image. It's crisp, it's clean, it works great for me, and I did it one time, just one hit wonder. So that was kind of cool. So now what I'm going to do is come in with my paints, and I've got, again, Sargasso and Mermaid, and I've just put a little bit on my craft sheet. I'm going to spritz these up with some water because I do want more of a watercolor than, you know, I want it to be fairly light. And I'm just going to come in, I'll take some of this, I'll pull it away from the main color so that I make sure that that's pretty light. And I'm just going to come in here like this. And the idea being, you can see what's happening. Even if I missed with the embossing powder area, that's a little bit thick, but I can always, if I get it on too thick, I can come in with some water and dab that up. But see what happens? Even if I did miss an area, which I have pretty good coverage, but you can see it just immediately resists that paint. I have my journal nearby, so if I have extra, I can come in and just use that up as I go. And then the same with the Sargasso. I'm just going to come in here. And I want to make sure that I'm getting enough coverage that my stamp image, again, that's too thick. So I'll just give it a spritz of water and come in and dab it up a bit. So the idea is it's more of, I want more of a watercolor background. That's kind of the idea. I just want to get some color. But I do want to make sure that I make the frame big enough that this will stamp on top of it, and hopefully it will work. You can use your fingers to blend. Fingers are a great tool, especially for this kind of thing. Okay, I've ended up using more of the Sargasso. I kind of like the darker color I'm finding, but I do want to keep in mind not to go too dark. Okay, going to stop there. And then see the magic? That is just the magic when you take your baby wipe and you just keep moving it around till you find a clean spot. But it just makes the letters pop when I clean that paint off of there. Look at that. It's so fun. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I do like how it's speckled. That's kind of fun. That's from where I got extra of the embossing, the clear embossing. And again, clear embossing. It's kind of a chunky emboss, but that's the look I wanted. If I wanted a crisper image, I could just go with a more of a detailed clear emboss, but I didn't. I wanted it to look messy because of the nature of the quote. So that's great. So now I'm going to clean this paint up and I will be back. I wanted to show you what I'm doing here. I am going to cut a window in my stamp, and what this does it will help prevent me from getting ink here that would transfer onto my image, number one. And number two, it'll allow me to see where my borders go and whatnot. And I use a good pair of strong scissors for this. And then this is, but what that helps. And the only thing is you do have to make sure when you're cutting that when you cut either straight up and down or this way a little bit. You want to make sure that foam stays underneath that stamp, because if I don't, if I end up cutting this way and there's no foam underneath the image, then, you know, that part of the image won't really show up. So it's better to have extra than not enough. But what that does is that'll allow me to position my stamp a little better. I've just taped my piece to a piece of cardstock for the simple reason that it's warped because of the paint, which is normal. But I do want it to kind of stay flat. And then I can figure out, I'll have one of my images just to give it an idea, which way do I want it. I kind of like having these in the corner. So I'm thinking, just gonna go for it. And then what I can do to make sure I do line it up properly the next go round, or when I actually go to do it, is I can take a pencil and just give myself some guidelines of where to, you know, line my block up. So now I know that, okay, if I position, and all you have to do is one corner really. If I position it there, we should be good. Okay. And I guess I should make sure too my tape is not in the way, because that would really be bad. I'm going to move this tape out of the way. Maybe just put it on the corner instead. Okay, and then I'm just going to go for it. So I'm going to have my heat gun's going to be warmed up. I have my copper ready to go. I'm going to have a cat sheet underneath. I can find a piece of paper. Okay, and we're just going to do it. Okay, I did clean up my area a bit, so there's less chance of catastrophe. I've double checked. I moved this piece of tape because this is right on the edge, but I think I'm good to go. I'm going to do it this way. I've got my powder at the ready. All right, let's do it. Bravely go forward. And I am definitely going to over ink this because I am. And I'm going to do this. I have to move quickly, line it up, hope for the best. Again, moving quickly to cover that whole area. I think I might be good, folks. We'll see. I do have some extra here. Again, I can just go in with a brush. I think we're looking good. All right, here we go. I am heating once again, and this gun is very loud. The gun I use is an embossing gun by Sizzix. It has 2 levels of speed, and I like to start on the lower level to start with, and once my powder starts to heat up and melt, as you see, I started underneath again, but the challenge with this one was there's 2 pieces of paper. So once it warmed up at all, I really brought it over to the top, and then I increased my heat once I could see that the powder wasn't going to move to the higher setting. And watch where once I pull it off the card, you can really start to see the emboss just go metallic. It looks so cool. There we go. See that copper? Again, that is Seth Apter's Rusty Copper. It's a new powder he came out with at Creativation in 2020, just here in January, which right now feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? But this is a really beautiful color, and I just loved it. And I had many different ideas for this project, and I went through many. You can see on my blog the different ideas I had, but in the end I just kept it with the copper, and it looks really good. I was really happy that this piece came together. It was very touch and go, but it came together pretty well. Here you go. Look at that. Yep, I am very happy with that. I'm very happy with how that turned out. I have a little bit over here, but that's okay. I like how this comes on top of the words. That's cool. I don't have a problem with that. That is all that prep worked. It absolutely worked, and I can trim this out so I'm not bothered by that. That's funny. So that's where the tape was originally. Isn't that interesting? So because I pulled that off, there was sticky left on this sheet. So that might be some kind of a fun technique to go there at some point. Use tape to create your area to be embossed. So yes, next. Okay, so my thought is I don't really want this to be on a traditional background. So what I've done is I've just grabbed a piece of scrapbook paper from my stash that has some printing and lines. It's like, I don't know where it came from. I've had it for a while. And I'm going to layer my card on top of this. And then I've got, this was a mesh bag from one of my daughter's sports equipment things. Like, you know, you get these mesh bags that you're not going to keep the product in it or the whatever in it. Has Velcro, which is kind of fun. And I'm just, so any mesh bag, any kind of texture background will work. And I just want to layer these. So I'm not going to bore you with cutting those out, but I'm going to cut those out and layer them. And maybe I'll do a bit of stamping on the back of this to add more. Okay, so now I am going to stamp my background a little bit in my background. And what I've done is I've pulled out some stamps. I've been playing, getting an idea of what I would like to go behind. And by mistake, I kind of created this patina look. And I really like that. So I think I'm going to do some of this, and I'll show you how to do it. But what I'd like is, my idea is just to have some stamping in a couple of places. But again, this is supposed to be a background, so I don't want it too strong. But I kind of like the idea of a little bit more. I am very much a more person. More is better. More is better. So I've pulled out some more darkroom door stamps, speaking of more. And I've just taken a couple of stamps from each set. So this is the Seaside collection, and I took some coral and this little star. This is one of my favorite sets, the grunge marks. I use this quite a lot. And I've just pulled out this circle, circle, circle. And the Essentials 21 hummingbirds. I love this script, so I've pulled that out. So those are the stamps I'm going to use to the background. And then what I came up with, which was kind of, again, it was a mistake, but I love it, is this sort of patina color. But the thing is, I don't know if these can be contaminated or not, but rather safe than sorry. What I did is I'm just going to put them on my craft mat and then kind of stamp in them. And I'll practice a little bit, but basically that's what I'm getting, is if I stamp into these colors, I'm getting this cool sort of patina look. And that's what I would like. So I'm keeping in mind that, you know, I just want a little bit. I kind of know where my borders are, and so I'm the same thing. I realize I'm not in camera, so that's clever. So that's fun. Again, creating this little patina look. Okay, I actually like the bold better, so I might go back in with this and just press a little harder. Not overly concerned if my image is blurred. Yeah, I like that. That's fun. Fun, fun, fun. Okay, so now I'm going to do my little star, and I think what I'm going to do is come in with a bit of the fire coral, which is a little bit brighter, and I'll get more of that type of image, but I like that. I'm just playing now. Maybe I'll do a couple of these here. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, see what I mean? It just, most of it doesn't even show, but it's just giving me a little more interest to my page, and I like that a lot. And then maybe I will come in with the thundercloud, which is a bit of a gray. I can always test, even though it's not going to be exact because I'm doing it on white, to see if I like the colors that I'm choosing. But I kind of like that. This is, again, one of my favorite stamps. I love this script stamp, and maybe I'll do it up and sideways. Okay, I'm liking that. I do leave some space open. Of course, it's hard. My more button wants more, let's do more. But I think I need a little orange over here, but I am loving this circle, so maybe I'll just do one bolder orange for fun. Yeah, that looks nice. That sort of goes to that. So good. We've got some fun background going. I'll clean those up in a bit. All right, so then I'm going to adhere that, and I'm going to get out my mesh as we talked about. I also have to figure out my card underneath it. I'm liking the idea of going with sort of a navy, so we'll see where that goes. Okay, so basically I've pulled out some paper. This is an old Tim Holtz paper pad. It was like a seasonal one. It had all the different Christmas and just seasonal, there we go. Seasonal. Ha, look, it even says seasonal. And because I really liked, I didn't want a plain background. I wanted to do a triple matte, and I wanted sort of the motley look of this. So I'm going to go with this. So I already cut the papers to fit. And then I'm just going to sort of crunch up my, glue that like that, and then glue that like that. And then I need something that turns this into birthday. So I will get that done and I'll be back. I did go around my edges with cinnamon swirl, and you can see it just adds sort of a little bit of a finished look. So that's kind of good. And then when I decided, when I adhere the black, I really do want there to be some shape to it. And so I'm going to come in with this. These are Zots by Thermalweb, and they're just these little tiny glue dots, but they're pretty strong. So I thought I could at least get some of this sort of tacked down using the Zots, and I'll show you what I mean. I kind of want it, I want it to be a bit uneven, so I'd like it to be bunched there, for instance. So what I can do is just figure out where I want my bunching to go. This is fiddly. This is the fiddly work. Kind of pull it, you know, like I'd like it to go a bit like that. And then I can just take one of these. You can see they're little round glue dots. And so I could put one there, for example. And I've got a glue dot. And then I just can kind of bunch the fabric or the mesh a little. And then that leaves me with some fun. And of course it is going to be a bit fiddly, but this whole project has been fiddly. So why not? And, you know, maybe even do something like this would be fun, to where it's kind of, so that I would do after. So I just want to gather it in a couple of places and fold the fabric a little just to make it a little uneven. And give it that mixed media look. Something like that. I guess gathered a bit is what I'm looking for. And then if that's still sticky, I can just cover it with some baby powder or such. So that's the idea. Okay, so I'm moving along here. I'll tell you what I've done. I adhered my cover to my background, and then the background, as I showed you, tucking in some of the mesh with using the glue dots, and then I used Ultra Bond adhesive and super tape to glue the layers down, because you literally have to do one layer of glue on the paper to the mesh and then another layer, the mesh to the card, because the glue just doesn't go through. And probably if I'd used the Ultra Bond, I could have done it, but I used the super tape, and the mesh is pretty dense. So I just did 2 layers. I want the card to stick. And then I took my V-ball pen. I decided I would sort of define the letters a bit, but I still wanted that sketchy look. So all I did was create basically what's like a shadow, and I just picked left and under, and on every letter I just did like underneath, underneath, left, underneath, 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 left, 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 like that. And I went through and did all the letters using the V-ball pen, which it's basically dried relatively permanent, so that's good. And now what I'm going to do, I'm trying to work on the happy birthday portion. And then I cut these letters out. I don't have any happy birthday stamps. Like I said, I'm not a big card maker. I might have some somewhere, I don't know. But what I did was I just printed these out on my laptop. If you go to Top Flight, has tons of happy birthday stamps. Darkroom Door has a whole chatter of different happy birthday fonts, which is really fun. There's a couple of different options you can get on there. But basically, I just printed this out on the computer, and it was like this, but then I realized I really don't want to cover that splatter up. I really like the splatter. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll do it a little like this, sort of cattywampus fun, in theme with the card and the whole idea. And I was just taking the cinnamon swirl, and I distressed the edges a bit. And because I did it on the computer, not with a archival ink, I did get a little bit of bleeding with this, but I mean, it's fine. It kind of looks cool. So I just took a bit of this and just scuffed it up a bit. Again, I'm not a big fan of white. I'd rather have color. So that's fine. And then that can go there. And I think that's what I do. I think I'll just adhere that like that. And then, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Turn it into a card. I have the back of this is the music paper, which I kind of like. So I might just, I don't know, I might just leave it and make it be a one-sided card that doesn't open, which is fun too. And just have a happy birthday. Happy birthday. I think I have one last little thing I want to do. So I'll adhere that down and I'll be back. Okay. So now I think what I'm going to just come in here is I'm coming in with a Posca white pen. And basically these are these delicious paint pens that you can use for accents and whatnot. I, of course, have wrecked mine because I was so rough with it. But anyway, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to highlight some of this. Just sort of where the... And maybe I'll do some on here. So the idea being, again, just to give it a little bit of just an added zhuzhing. So if you want to make this card, but you're like, oh my gosh, this is way too much work, this is crazy, you know, all these extra steps, you can simplify it. And I'll show you a way to do it that's pretty simple. I had also taken some, I did the whole thing with ink as well, and it just took me no time at all. So you don't have to go and do all these steps. Like I said, you can just, that's kind of fun. I don't want to do too much of that. I just wanted to do a little bit. Add a little bit of accentuations. If I don't like it, I can also just go in with a baby wipe. Like if I decide, man, why did I do that? I can just go in with a baby wipe and wipe that off. You see? So I could say, yeah, I like it the way it is there. I'll just take some of that off. But I like the edges. So that's good. And then the only thing I'm going to do is I think I'm going to frame this out a bit. The little happy birthday. Make that a little sketchy. There. Done. That's it. Look how fabulous that is. A little bit of work, but it was also fun doing. It was fun experimenting because now I have all kinds of other ideas from my experimentations of things that I can do. And I wanted to show you the one. If you just want to make it super simple, you can just do it like this. And this was basically stamping, painting on the inside. Simple as that. Or you could do a combination where you just stamp the outside and emboss the inside. And that would be a lot easier to do. Now, there's all kinds of things you can do. But anyway, that is my card for today. And this was for the 3rd birthday blog hop for Top Flight stamps. So happy birthday, Top Flight. In case you're unaware, Top Flight is a retail store or an online store that caters mainly to stamps that are harder to get in the US. For example, stamps from the Netherlands and the UK and Australia, and using the darkroom door stamps today, showcasing those a little bit. Again, that's an Australian company, and Paper Artsy, where we used the paint is from Britain, and a lot of these are, you know, one owner businesses, so they're not big conglomerates, they're just family-run businesses and great people. Love working with them. And that's it. And I hope whoever gets this fabulous card, I can already tell I have to fix that. I'll fix that, don't worry. Will love it and have a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Top Flight. Bye.